Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Boca Chamber's exclusive trustee luncheon this afternoon with a very special guest who I'll give a proper introduction in a moment. But it's good to see so many people on this call this afternoon to listen to some really important issues and topics that our speaker is going to address in a few moments. But first of all, some housekeeping. We are recording this presentation and it'll be available on our YouTube channel later today or tomorrow. So if you want to go back and review some of the content, we welcome you to do that. We are going to have some questions at the end. We've got our speaker with us. You'll have the opportunity to ask him some questions, and you don't want to miss that opportunity. So we're going to use the Q&A box on your screen to do that, and we'll manage that at the end of the program. And so with that, again, welcome. We're into February already. Boy, did January go quick. Unlike, I think, maybe the last, say, 9 months prior to that, which didn't go so quick. I believe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Very much looking forward to hearing from our speaker's perspective about that as we continue to move business forward. But our speaker is, as you know, my good friend, the President and CEO of the Florida Chamber of Commerce. Mark has been running that organization for many years. I won't say, I'll let him say, maybe as many as I have here in Boca Raton. But he runs the largest and most influential business advocacy organization in the state, with members from all over the state, including chambers of commerce and, of course, private business entities. He leads all of the political, lobbying, grassroots, economic development operations with the Florida Chamber. And what he's doing is to trying to make our state more competitive, more attractive for business, for investment, and for people to come and live, work, learn, and play in what we think certainly is the best state in the country. He creates a business agenda with the Florida Grassroots Network. He mobilizes business communities from all over the state so we can move critical issues forward. I know I'm a little biased when I say this. I've known Mark for a very long time, but he is by far the best. We have the best state chamber in all of the United States and the best CEO of any state chamber in the United States. No offense to my other friends in that space, but Florida, like in so many other respects, is no different with its Chamber of Commerce. We are a leader, we are a model in the state of Florida. Some other things about Mark: he's the architect of groundbreaking statewide political campaigns. Again, he safeguards our community through policy, through good sound policy, and through all the efforts that he does to make sure we get the right pro-business, like-minded professionals serving in our legislature up in Tallahassee. He serves on the board of directors for the Florida Association of Chamber Professionals, Enterprise Florida, Leadership Florida, of course, his organization, the Florida Chamber, the Florida Chamber Foundation. He actively participates in the Florida Council of 100. He serves as the national chair of the Council State Chambers. So in other words, he's leading all of the other state chambers in the country through their initiatives. And he's very active in the U.S. Chambers Committee 100. He's from Illinois. He got his undergrad degree at the University of Georgia, which I always forget. He earned his designation CCE, Certified Chamber Executive, the highest designation that we can earn in our industry. Prior to coming to the Florida Chamber, he was the vice president, Chicagoland Chamber, and also worked at the U.S. Chamber. That's kind of the written stuff. My own personal commentary here is the last year's been interesting, to say the least. What Mark Wilson has done for me personally as a chamber CEO, for our industry, and for this community has been nothing short of amazing. He has kept us together. He's provided us with a sense of calm, with more information that we could ever ask for so that we can be successful in our own communities and provide that sense of confidence and calm and information, all the things that we've needed. Mark's a hard worker in any given time. I don't think he has slept in the last 10 months, although he looks really good. because, either I'm on a Zoom call with him in the day and then maybe talking to him late at night. His efforts have been amazing, and he's tireless. I need to drink what he's drinking because it's working for him. But to say the least, we could not have gotten through the past year without Mark Wilson, his leadership, his tenacity to make sure that we were all okay while he's running the largest business advocacy organization in the state of Florida. So Mark, for me personally, from my team and my colleagues, can't thank you enough for what you've done for us. Continue to do for us. Excited to hear about what you see in the near term for us, and maybe some light at the end of this tunnel. I know you're wicked busy. For you to spend time with us today is a big deal. Appreciate that as well. So welcome to the Boca Chamber. Welcome to our high-level trustee members. I got a lot of board members on this call as well, eager to hear what you have to say. But it's great to see you, and thanks so much for being here.
Well, Troy, listen, thanks so much, and I really appreciate that introduction from everybody. Let me, if I can, just to take a technical transition here, I want to pull up my slide deck here because there we go. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. And all right, then, Troy, again, I want to thank you very much for that. I think we could call it a wrap right now, and this will have already been the best Zoom call I've been on in 2021. It's awfully humbling to hear you talk about the work of the Florida Chamber of Commerce. And, I know that your trustees and your board members know this, but we have 405 cities in Florida and 67 counties, and it's a great honor to get to work with a handful of chamber leaders that manage to figure out a way to unite their local business community. At the same time, they're putting their long term ahead of the short term. And Troy, you certainly fit that bill. You and I are on a couple of national boards together. And, when we walk into a U.S. chamber meeting, I'm never at a U.S. chamber meeting that Troy's not there. So believe it or not, Boca has probably an outsized representation in our national boards. And that's all because other people in our industry recognize Troy's leadership. And so I know all of you didn't dial in to hear me and Troy talk about what we're working on together. And so Troy, Sarah, Chastity, thanks so much for making this happen today. What we want to do is, obviously we have what I think is a catbird's sort of seat in terms of what's been going on in Florida, what's happening in your region, what might be happening in Florida as we go forward and kind of come out of this pandemic. We're the only chamber in the United States with a full-time chief economist. And so that'll come through loud and clear today as I share some of this information with you. Troy, my last slide today will be instructions on how people can download this presentation. And also your team either has it or will have it. And so you can distribute this to your trustees in a manner that you think makes the most sense to advance the issues that you would want to work on. So this presentation that I've prepared today is, I want to give you a little bit of asterisks on the front end. One, our Florida Chamber is just over 100 years old, and our board members, range from Pensacola, to the very tip of South Florida. We're in every kind of industry, very small businesses all the way up to, some of our Fortune 500s. We have 17 that are headquartered in Florida. Many of them serve on our board as well. And so our job is to try to unite the common interests of business really for good. And what that means is we want to grow and diversify our economy. And we have a fundamental belief that for people who want to work, Florida should be the best place on planet Earth for that to happen. And that means, we have to fight like crazy to make sure that free enterprise principles are alive and well in cities like Boca, in counties like Palm Beach and Broward, and of course, all over the state. So with that said, the way we want to do this is I have quite a bit to share with you in a short amount of time. The best part of our program will be when we get to the Q&A portion. And so I'm going to do my job to try to be like a race car driver and go fast. But feel free to start asking questions, or at least get your questions ready, and then we'll do the best we can to try to answer them. If I don't know them, I probably know somebody that will know the answer to it. So Troy, let's keep track of who asked what, and if there's something I don't know, we'll get to the bottom of it by close of business. You have my word on that. So what I'd like to do first is everyone's talking about COVID, and today's presentation is in no way, shape, or form meant to be a political conversation. And so please don't see it that way. But I think all of you have employees, and I think it's important that we start our conversations off with a little bit of context of what are our employees talking about. And also, obviously our country is pretty divided right now on lots of different quadrants. We could be talking about capitalism versus socialism. We could be talking about Democrats versus Republicans. We could be talking about wealthy versus poor. I don't know if we're the most divided our nation's ever been before, but it certainly feels like it's more divided than any of us can remember. But look at this poll right here. The Florida Chamber is constantly doing polling. And I just simply want to say there's only one Florida, and there's only one way we're responding to COVID. But the poll that you're looking at right here basically says, and remember, these are your employees, your neighbors, your vendors, your coworkers. Essentially, Republicans think we've handled it about right. 68% of Republicans think we've handled it about right. 68% of Democrats have said we have not been restrictive enough. There's only one way we've done it. But my point here, I wanted to start off by saying North Florida and South Florida view this very differently. Republicans and Democrats view this very differently. Men and women view it very differently. And what's special about a chamber of commerce, think about the Boca Chamber, is you've all shown up because you have something in common, and it's not your differences. It's you want the right things for the future of the region. And I think when we see poll numbers like this, it's vital to understand we need to focus right now on what we have in common. Again, not what we have different. Look, a lot of numbers on this. You can dissect this later, but we just came out of the field with another poll. This is a poll of voters, just to be clear. And the question is, what are your top concerns in Florida right now? On the left side, you can see, that 44% of Floridians have said COVID-19 is their number one concern. Jobs is their second, and education is their third. And you can see where healthcare and immigration ranks. I'm not going to go through this in detail. You all can read, but if you look at this, men and women, women, 50% of women have said COVID, 38% of men have said COVID. You can see, Democrats are much more concerned about COVID than Republicans are. And then you can see where NPAs are in that regard as well. Interestingly enough, white, black, and brown, pretty evenly, pretty even there. But if you look on the right side of this equation, look down at the bottom, look at Broward, Miami. These are all the media markets in Florida, and this is just a simple crosstab that we do. If you look at this, generally speaking, you're pretty aligned between West Palm and Broward, Miami, fairly aligned to the rest of the state. So that's a pretty good way to see how you are viewing things, or at least how voters in your region are viewing things first based on the rest of the state. This is an interesting one too. Is Florida headed in the right direction or the wrong direction? Again, if you're up in Panama City, up near Bay County, my goodness, things are going in the right direction. If you're in West Palm, things are going in the wrong direction. Same thing with Broward and Miami. Men and women see this very differently. Men think right direction, women think wrong direction. Look at the difference between Republicans and Democrats. So again, I don't want to make this into a political conversation, but so that I can talk about the economics of Florida and where we are going forward, so much of our potential progress in Florida is going to be based on our ability to work together. We have to consider race, we have to consider gender, we have to consider North Florida, South Florida, we have to consider coastal versus inland, we have to consider rural versus urban. And when everybody has a different opinion, then chambers of commerce really need to figure out how can we convene leaders together to really, push through making sure the right things happen. If ever there was a time for populism to not be the right approach, it's right now, because as you can see, there's really no solutions that are popular by a vast majority of people. So just please keep that in mind as we go forward. All right, now into the heart of the conversation today. The floridascorecard.org is the source of a lot of our information. That's a channel that we own. We update it several times a day. But again, in case you haven't heard me talk about this before, if Florida was a country, we would be the 17th largest economy in the world. We're bigger than Saudi Arabia. And our goal is to be the 10th largest economy in the world in just a decade. So we want to be bigger than Mexico, literally just in the next 10 years. We're not going to go through this whole slide here, but off to the right, notice, we're on day 338 in Florida since we had our first confirmed case of COVID. And if you look at these numbers over here on the right, I'm going to talk about the unemployment rate later, especially in your two counties. And I'm going to show you kind of at a hyper local level what's going on. But I want to ask everybody not to get too focused on the unemployment rate because it's a bit misleading. What I want to look at here is right now in Florida, we have 371,000 jobs in our state that cannot find qualified people to fill them. So there's plenty of jobs in Florida that are open right now. Our chief economist last week predicted that in 2021, we're going to add 280,000 new jobs, and we'll add 290,000 new residents. And if you're keeping track of that, look down here at this number. Florida has 419,000 fewer jobs today than we had 1 year ago. And so what we believe is that by the summer of, basically by the end of Q2 of 2022, Florida's economy will be back where it was at the end of Q4 of 2019. So in other words, the quarter immediately before COVID hit Florida, we'll get back to that summer of 2022. Now, we have all kinds of industries represented on the call today. Some of you are already back to pre-COVID levels. Some of you, or if you're in the hospitality tourism industry, you probably won't be back until summer of 2023 to the full extent you were before. And again, not trying to make anybody mad, just we need to have realistic expectations. We're part of a global economy. And if other countries don't let people return to Florida, there's not much we can do to recover that part of our economy. But look at the 614,000 number up here that I mentioned. We have 614,000 people looking for a job and they can't find a job that they're qualified for. So, this is more than an algebra equation. We have a skills gap mismatch. And so I know your chamber is very involved in helping us with workforce development, and we're pushing the legislature to invest more in skills training, rapid credentialing, certain certifications that employers need. So let's just keep that in mind as we go forward. This number down here, it's the last one I'm going to mention before I turn the page. Something that New York wishes they had, and California and Illinois, they wish they had residents moving into their state, and they wish they had wealth moving into their state. This data point here, 1.19 million, every hour of every day, 7 days a week, 24/7, 365 days a year, Florida has about $1.2 million of wealth. So think about W-2 income. And this is a net number, by the way, moving into Florida every hour of every day, 7 days a week. And we can get you the numbers for your counties as well. We even know the zip codes from where that wealth is coming from. People like Kelly Smallridge and others are already taking advantage of that data. It's one way they know how to target where wealth is moving to Florida from. And you can see up here on the population tracker, we're already over 22 million residents. We're continuing to grow by 900 people a day. Keep in mind, about 90% of the 900 people a day that we grow by come from another country or come from another state, and that's split about 50-50. So Florida's changing like crazy. Over the last 5 years, we've created one out of every 11 new U.S. jobs, and we want to keep that up. Troy, what I want to do now is we also provide this data for every county so that leading chambers of commerce like Troy, like the Boca Chamber, can use this data. And I'll show you in a minute a pretty cool thing that Troy and Sarah are doing there. But here you have your county level data, both for Broward and for Palm Beach. And again, we don't need to go back through these numbers. You can look this up later, but I do want to show you here, good news in Palm Beach, your COVID numbers are heading in the right direction. That's what the White House has always wanted. Broward, your percentage is headed in the right direction. Your average daily cases are headed in the wrong direction. And so that's something we want to pay close attention to. The numbers you see here in Broward, you're on day 333 since your first COVID case. You got the vaccine 52 days ago. These numbers are updated daily. Here you have in Broward, you have 75, let's call it, thousand fewer jobs in Broward today than you had a year ago. And you flip over here to Palm Beach and you can see exactly where you were a year ago. You have about 46,000 fewer jobs. And so again, a lot of data here. Didn't want to go through tons of data, just kind of want to give you the general trend and the general sense of where we headed. Green means it's headed in the right direction. Red means it's headed in the wrong direction. And if you see a gray box, it's really there just as a point of reference, for example, your population numbers. Okay. I want to give a special thanks to Troy and the team there. We created many, many months ago, we created a local COVID tracker as a way to unite all of Florida's local chambers of commerce together. It's part of our hashtag Chamber Strong movement. And here you have Troy. I can't thank you enough. Your chamber's providing an incredible public service by posting this every single day. And so for all of you on the line today, if you're not paying attention to this, here's how you can get sort of your daily dose of what's going on with COVID locally. We've matched it up with the unemployment numbers and how many jobs you have compared to a year ago. Our hope is that the county commission in all 67 counties will start to use these job numbers at their monthly meetings, right? So instead of talking about, how to make budgets work, if they were talking about how to create jobs and how to work with local chambers and local businesses, that's the way we're going to grow our economy. So we're looking forward to that. In terms of average number of daily COVID cases, we get this question so much, like how are we doing today versus where we were a month ago, 6 months ago? Again, don't want to go through the details. I just want you to see the trend lines of what's going on with numbers of cases. We certainly can get this to you later. It'll be downloadable for you. Statewide, if you look at where have the job losses come from, the point of this slide is really no surprise. About half of the job losses have come from our tourism and hospitality industry. But what I want you to pay attention to here is it's been incredibly uneven. Certain industries have already come back. Some are actually growing. And we don't have time to get into it today, but people in America who earn over $60,000 a year, the unemployment rate's actually less today than it was at the start of COVID. And your average income has actually grown during COVID. That's not the same case as middle and low income earners. So again, it's a bit uneven when you look at the recovery. Now I want to get into a little bit of stuff people don't like to talk about. So when we talk about the unemployment numbers in Florida, it's easy to get wrapped up in the percentages, but I call it a fake number. And the reason is during COVID in Florida, we've had over 275,000 people leave the workforce. In other words, they either left their job, lost their job, but they're no longer looking for work. Most of these Floridians are women, and most of these are because of childcare. And either their childcare facility is not open anymore, or it's getting too expensive, or one of the wage earners in the home, or the only wage earner in the home is now staying home, i.e. not looking for work anymore. So there's two ways to look at this. One is our unemployment numbers sort of underrepresented at 6.1% statewide. And your numbers are obviously underrepresented in Palm Beach and Broward as well. Because if the positive way to look at this is there's another 276,000 people who are qualified to work, that if they knew there were open jobs for them available and the conditions are right, maybe we can get them to come back into the workforce. Keep in mind, we have to create 2 million new jobs over the next 10 years as we add 4 million people to Florida. So we need these people back in the workforce. And I will tell you, one of our Achilles heels in the United States is the availability and affordability of childcare. And if you happen to know a childcare facility owner, you might want to be talking to her or him, because now that Florida has this $15 an hour mandate coming our way, childcare is about to get even more expensive, and it's going to really hit childcare facilities. So that's something your company might want to be paying attention to. We're seeing a lot of Florida Chamber members start to look at, increasing the employee benefits of childcare stipends. And it's a pretty big deal. We're doing a massive study on this right now. We should have some results for you in June. Here's a bit more of a hyper local level. I remember I talked about almost over 275,000 people have left the workforce. In Palm Beach, you've had over 27,000 people leave the workforce over the last year. And in Broward, you've had about 35,000 people leave the workforce over the last year. Again, these are significant numbers. Here's what your local numbers look like. And again, you have Broward has about 75,000 fewer jobs than you had a year ago, and Palm Beach has about 46,000 fewer jobs in your county than you had a year ago. These are things we have to get back. And remember what I said, we believe Florida will be back at pre-COVID levels at the end of Q2 in 2022. And that's if all things go well. That's optimistic. That's if the legislature does the right thing. That's if our global economy continues on the path it's on. So now what I want to do is, Troy, and I appreciate you letting me talk about this, Troy. One of the ways that we're going to grow Florida's economy is to make sure that we have equality of economic opportunity in every single zip code all over Florida. So some of you know I testified in Congress on this issue a number of years ago. We've been working with the Federal Reserve. Our goal is to cut childhood poverty in half over the next decade in Florida. And I will tell you, if you've not heard of this initiative, I'd really like to ask your company to consider finding a way to get involved through the Boca Chamber on what you can do locally. There's no government program that's going to end poverty, right? It's education and job opportunities that the private sector creates. That's how we're going to do this. So what we have right now in Palm Beach County is you have about 50,000 children who are living in poverty right now. Poverty is too big for Congress. It's too big for the state. It's too big for the county. Poverty is a neighborhood or a zip code issue. And so what I want to show you here is how you can look up in your zip code, how your zip code's doing and how your local schools are doing. So Troy, and to your membership today that's on the line, I would just say, if you have a heart or an interest in helping us cut childhood poverty in the zip code where your business is located or the zip code that you live, or you want to help third graders in the schools that are in your community be able to read. 100% of third graders read at grade level. I want to show you a couple of tools that local chambers of commerce are now using to help us get the word out about this. I shared with you that in Palm Beach, you've got about 50,000 kids in poverty. In Broward, you have about 73,000 kids living in poverty. In fact, Broward has a zip code where more kids are living in poverty in that zip code than any other zip code in all of Florida. And so it's something we're paying a lot of attention to. Big picture, we have 983 zip codes in Florida. We have more than that, but 983 with people living in them. And our chief economist heat mapped out, so where do all the kids in poverty live? And, we all know the 80-20 rule, where in poverty, it plays out. 50% of our kids in poverty in Florida live in only 15% of our zip codes. 150 zip codes account for half of our kids in poverty is another way to say that. Here's an ask, Troy, that I would have of your chamber. And so here's sort of a micro look inside Palm Beach County. And this is really just in Boca. Here are the zip codes that really represent just Boca proper, if you will. Here's what we're looking to do in Florida. We're looking for a business to be the zip code leader, to help organize the local businesses in that zip code, to help cut the number of kids in poverty in half over the next 10 years. So for example, in this upper left right here, in your zip code 33496, you have 197 kids living in poverty right now. What we would want to do over the next 10 years is to cut that number down to about 100 over the next decade. If you have a business in that zip code, or you live in that zip code, or you have a heart for that zip code, if you'd like to be the quarterback of that zip code, Troy, what would be amazing is if your members would adopt all 7 of these zip codes and work with the Florida Prosperity Initiative to talk about what are the best practices that Huizinga is doing up in Riviera Beach and that we're doing in Orlando and we're doing over in Pensacola. Again, these are not federal programs and state programs. These are business-led reforms. We're tying in, Boys and Girls Club, United Way, Chambers of Commerce, in some communities, faith-based communities. We're trying to take advantage of the services that are already there, and we're aligning them through businesses. It's the only way this is going to happen. And again, here's what here's what a bigger section of the Boca area looks like. So if there's a zip code that wasn't represented on the prior map. Now, Troy, as I don't have a lot of slides left, so, hope we can get ready for questions. But here's another major initiative that we have. If we're going to grow our economy to the 10th largest in the world by 2030, we have to focus on early learning. 53% of our kids that are entering kindergarten are ready to enter kindergarten. That we need to make it 100%. And so kudos to all of you that are investing in early learning programs. One sort of outcome we need to look at is 3rd grade reading scores, because 3rd grade reading scores is a really good way to tell whether our early learning initiatives are working the way that they need to. And here we have a brand new, this is a national first. It's called the Florida Gap Map. People across the country are talking about this. I encourage you to go to the floridagapmap.com, go over here and click on Palm Beach County. If we were live right now, these are zip codes. If I were mousing over a zip code, it would tell you how many kids are in poverty in that zip code. All the dots that are here, these are schools. These are public schools with 3rd grade classrooms in them. So if I were to mouse over the Boca Raton Elementary School, what I would find out is only 37% of the kids in that school can read at grade level or above in 3rd grade, right? So we have 47 kids at that school not reading at grade level. Well, what can we do about that? Can one of your businesses go in and adopt that classroom and work with that teacher and that principal to do reading programs? Maybe they need some technology. Maybe they need reading coaches. So what we're doing is we're literally matching companies with schools, companies with classrooms. And again, we're not trying to create a government program here. We're trying to take matters into our own hands and say, look, this isn't the principal's fault. It's not the superintendent's fault. It's not the teacher's fault. But if we want the world's best workforce, then we've kind of got to put our money where our mouth is, and we got to go into these schools and we've got to ask teachers, hey, can we come into the classroom and can we help? And again, so whether it's adopting a zip code to help us cut poverty in half, or whether it's, taking a look at a classroom that's in your community and just looking at, wait, how many kids are in that school that can't read at grade level? And what is it that we, through local chambers of commerce, can do to fundamentally change the trajectory of these kids' lives? Troy, what I want to pivot to now is, obviously the legislature's here this week. In fact, I was in the governor's office yesterday working with the First Lady on an important project that we're doing. And I wanted to thank your chamber because one of our top priorities is, especially for our healthcare industry, but for all of you who have employees or customers that come into your office, your store, your restaurant, your shop, your facility, the last thing that we want are billboard trial lawyers suing all of you because someone who ends up getting COVID, can turn around and say, well, I must have got it at work, therefore I want to sue my employer. OSHA isn't getting engaged with this now in the last couple of weeks. And we need to make sure that the legislature passes common sense, targeted, timely reforms that protect all of you from the frivolous lawsuit of a COVID liability claim. And Troy, your chamber is right up front there. We have almost 100 local chambers that are part of the Florida Chamber's huge coalition asking the legislature to protect local businesses on this. And I want to thank your chamber for being part of this effort. Also, let me mention, local chambers asked us to help put together a nonpartisan candidate school to make sure that business leaders know, hey, what's on the ballot in the next 5 or 6 years? Maybe we have some employees who might be interested in running for local office. The Florida Chamber does not and will not endorse in local races. It's just not our business. But we did take our expertise and put it to good use. We've created the Florida Institute for Political Leadership. It's free. I encourage all of you to take advantage of it. But here's what you see in 2021. You've got 2 Boca City Council seats, 3 Delray City Commission seats, 2 Riviera City Council seats. You can see what's coming up in 2022. Same thing in Broward. And so what we're asking local business leaders to do, whether you get involved in elections locally or not, it's really not my business. We never will. But by being very transparent about what's on the ballot, there's 4,500 local electable positions in Florida over the next 5 years. And we have a fundamental belief that, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or independents or any one of the 26 political affiliations in Florida, the more people know about these elections, the more quality candidates we're probably going to get in the pool. So I wanted to put that in front of you today. And Troy, I want to thank your chamber for being a big part of this effort. Also, I mentioned before, what I want to show you here, it's not good or bad. It's just kind of the reality of what makes up your electorate locally. If you can see there, the lion's share of your, sorry about that, the lion's share of who makes up your electorate in Palm Beach County, clearly Democrats, followed by no party, followed by Republicans, and that trend is continuing. When we move over here to Broward, you see the same thing. You have Democrats, then NPAs, then Republican, and that trend is going to continue. If you haven't heard me say it on a prior call or a prior meeting that I've done, somewhere around 2025 or 2026, Florida will be Democrat registration, then no party, then Republican. That we're projecting that to happen somewhere around 25 or 26. And so, again, I'm not saying, that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's something we all need to be aware of. As we add 900 people a day to Florida, and 90% of them are from another country or another state, some of them are bringing their politics with them. And we just all need to be mindful that Florida's politics, economics, and demographics are changing like crazy. I started the presentation out, and I'll kind of end it in the same place. We're a pretty divided country right now. And I think the business community has a unique ability to help bring everybody from every political stripe and belief sort of back into that common denominator that a job is a good thing. Growing the economy is a good thing. And we can disagree about policies, but we all ought to agree violently, and I mean that in a positive way, on kind of growing the economy is the right thing. I wanted to show you here, this surprises a lot of people. Hillary Clinton, percentage-wise, did slightly better than Biden in Palm Beach. Trump did better in 20 than he did in 2016 in Palm Beach. Same thing holds true in Broward. Clinton did better than Biden. Trump did better than Trump in 2020 than he did in 2016. Again, none of these are good or bad. I think that they show we're more divided today than we were a couple years ago. And I literally believe the business community is the only group that has the potential of unifying everybody together. The COVID liability protections that we're asking the legislature to pass and the governor to sign, these are supported significantly by voters all over Florida. 85% are Republicans, 63% of Democrats, 73% of no party. 74% of voters in Florida believe that local businesses who followed the Department of Health and CDC guidelines should not be held liable if an employee gets COVID. And so that's something that we're asking the legislature to do. It's going to be vital that healthcare facilities, hospitals, and so forth are protected, just like all businesses are protected. And so we're fighting. The legislature until today did not include healthcare facilities. The Senate just today has started to move a bill that we strongly support that'll also protect our healthcare heroes and frontline workers as well. This is what the bill does. Again, I just simply wanted to put it up here. You can read about it later. Troy, last thing I wanted to share is really a request from your membership. And here's how this goes, right? We need to create 2 million jobs over the next decade, as I mentioned before. We talk a lot about diversity and Florida's economy. It might surprise everyone to know that Florida today, out of all 50 states, Florida has the 20th most diverse economy in the United States. In fact, when I mention Orlando, some of you think theme parks, but Orlando is the global capital of modeling and simulation. It's a $5 billion industry, and it's literally the global center of all things modeling and simulation related. So here's what I need from everyone. We're in the middle of a massive workforce study right now. And the question is, over the next several years, what does your business or your industry need to help make Florida more competitive from a skills gap perspective? So if there's anybody on the call today that wants to help us, this is an anonymous survey. If there's anybody on the call today that wants to help us quickly get and assimilate some of the best information we can, Troy, I don't know if you can circulate this survey link or not, but we really need the business community all over Florida to help tell us, what do you need from the legislature, from the Department of Education, from our universities, our colleges, our technical centers? This is the third time we've done a massive statewide study on this. Each time it proves fruitful, and we're asking all of you to participate in that if you can. So Troy, I'm going to end there. I hope we have some questions and some time for some dialogue. I will tell you, if Florida was a stock, I'd be investing in it for sure. And this is where people can download this presentation from, and you can do with it what you want to. Troy, oftentimes when we share this kind of a deck, it actually leads to more questions than answers. And that's actually our hope, because I know your chamber is very focused on growing the Boca economy and the regional economy. And the Florida Chamber is here to do everything we can to support you and the team in that endeavor. So thanks for the time today, and I'll do my best to answer any questions if I can.
Well, Mark, thank you so much. This is awesome information, amazing information. As you pointed out, we make so much of this available to the membership. I hope they're taking advantage of it, but it's awesome to have your perspective as you look at some of the metrics and the data points on here. Great presentation. Letting us know where we are today. And so, yeah, we've got some questions. I've got some questions. I think I'm going to lead it off, and we'll get to the Q&A. We should have plenty of time. Let me first start off by commenting on a few of your initiatives. And I want to remind the leaders on the call that these amazing initiatives are coming from the leadership of Mark Wilson. And we are happy partners and supporters of the things that he's doing. We'll take the Florida Prosperity Initiative as an example. As Mark knows, and many on the call know, half of all the corporate headquarters in Palm Beach County happen to reside in Boca Raton. So we have a lot of opportunity, Mark, to identify 3, 5, or maybe the 7 corporate sponsors to try to, chip away at that poverty issue. And when we talk about Boca Raton, we don't talk poverty in Boca Raton in the same sentence very often. And so this perspective is enlightening for us, and I think we have some serious opportunity there. The Political Institute process is something that the Boca Chamber has had in the past. It's getting harder and harder to identify folks to run for office, understandably so. Mark, what you've done to sort of aggregate some of those efforts has been great. We are a proud sponsor and partner. We will continue to do that, to play our part, as you so evidently displayed. Locally, we've got plenty of open seats, and we really need to identify the right people to run and serve on those councils and commissions and school boards, et cetera. And we will be happy, obviously, to share the workforce development link and try to, again, provide enough valuable information for you and your team. Let me jump into the business liability issue. As you mentioned, yes, we are strong supporters of moving some legislation through that will protect our members, your members, our members in the business community in general, and we will continue to do that. And so I will encourage, along with Mark, as we do frequently, if you have not yet contacted, from your perspective, our local delegation in Tallahassee, please do so, and we can help you with that if you need to. But that's critical, I think, as we move forward. And we've constantly heard from you, the members and the businesses, that that's something that's important to you. to have in place. And it's good to see it moving along in the legislature right now through the committee process, Mark. And I know that you and your team have all to do with moving that forward and all your work with the governor and his office. So thank you. Mark, you made a comment earlier about, well, you identified the timeline of like Q2 2022, I think, and we can and will get there if the legislature does the right thing. Business liability aside, because we addressed it, and I think that's going in the right direction. Do you think they will do the right thing? Certainly, at least in the 2021 legislative session. What do you see early on before it actually officially gets in through the process, through the chatter, and all of your engagement in Tallahassee? Will they do the right thing to get us to success or late, the end of the tunnel, whatever, in Q2 of 2022?
Yeah, so Troy, thanks for that. And I want to answer that. One thing though, as you were talking right there about poverty, I'm not going to name names, but last year before COVID, I was actually having dinner with a healthcare executive from your community, and I was talking about this, and she told me that there's nobody, certainly not kids, in poverty in the zip code that she lives in. And so I came back and sent her a note, and sure enough, there's hundreds of kids in her zip code that were in poverty. And I want to share that with your members to say this: no one cares more about growing our economy and kids in poverty than people on this call, right? But if you don't know what's going on in your zip code, and if you don't know that there's kids in schools that you pass by every day that aren't reading at grade level, then you don't know what you can do about it. And so this is an awareness campaign. And Troy, I appreciate your interest in helping us find leaders in at least all 7 of those zip codes. Now to your question, will the legislature do the right thing, right? So the first thing we ask the legislature to do is do no harm, right? So again, Florida's the envy of the rest of the country. I don't care if you're Texas, Georgia, everyone wants the education system and the growing and diversified economy that Florida has. For 5 years in a row, we've made record investments in infrastructure. Florida invests over $10 billion a year in our roads, our bridges, and our infrastructure. And other states just dream of doing that, right? And so what I would say, the number one thing we need the legislature to do is do no harm. Now, there's about a $3 billion shortfall in the state budget because of COVID. There's a lot of ways they can solve that, right? Including using federal dollars that are available for them to draw down. Some states are raising taxes on businesses as a way to fund their shortfalls. That would be the wrong way to go, right? Now, just full disclosure, there's one tax we're in favor of. If we could have a personal income tax on trial lawyers in Florida, bring it on, right? Art Laffer tells us, if you want less of something, just tax it. And we have more billboards encouraging you to sue someone in Florida than any other state or any other country. And so it's a bit out of control. Now, what can the legislature do? Troy, I think that remember, the legislature, it's a political process, and Republicans control everything, the governor's office, the House, and the Senate. And so you'd think that all of this would be a no-brainer. The problem is we're talking about human beings, and we're talking about politics, and we're talking about the most important state in the United States, politically speaking, and second or third most from an economic standpoint. Will the legislature do the right thing? They probably won't do everything that we need them to do, but we're gonna make sure they don't do the wrong things. A couple things on the agenda. In addition to COVID liability, we have a very significant sales tax problem in Florida. And this is hurting local retailers, some of whom I'm sure are on the call right now. There's only 2 of all the states in the United States that collect a sales tax. And I think there's only 5 or 6 that do not, states like Oregon. There's only 2 states that collect a sales tax in the United States that are not collecting it on online sales tax from out-of-state retailers. And so we're talking about Missouri and Florida. So Troy, think about how many purchases have been made in the COVID pandemic online. right? And think how many people bought them from out-of-state retailers and didn't pay sales tax on those purchases. So this is probably about a $500 million, $500 to $600 million revenue item. But for us, it's not about the money. It's about the equity. Because here's what's happening. People are walking into a store in Boca and they're trying on shoes, or they're trying on pants or a jacket or a hat or whatever. And then they're saying, oh, awesome. I love this color and this size. Thanks so much. And the store owner says, well, are you going to buy it? Yeah. I'm going to go buy it online so I don't have to pay the sales tax. And so what's happening is we're creating showrooms that are not generating economic activity for Florida local businesses. It's not fair. It's wrong. And after the Wayfair decision happened, the legislature can do the right thing. I have a lot of confidence that they will. I don't think the argument will be, will they do it or not? The argument will be, will they want to make it revenue neutral or not? Will they want to give taxpayers the dollars back, so to speak? Let me point out, all of you who are making online sales purchases from out of state, you're right now legally required to go to the Department of Revenue's website, download the form, calculate your own sales tax. You're currently required to remit those sales taxes to the state of Florida. So if you're not doing that, buyer beware, you probably ought to start. Okay. Also, Troy, we have the #1 rated colleges and universities in the United States for 3 years in a row. The legislature has a strong interest, and we've obviously been wind at their back, a strong interest in early learning reforms. So quality early learning. Think about what I said earlier about, kindergarten readiness and third grade reading. And for those of you who are asking, why are these business issues? This is our future workforce. And for those of you who are from larger companies where you're trying to recruit people from out of state, from the Northeast, from the Midwest, from out West, one of the things we economic developers repeatedly hear is, but your education system's not very good. Well, our education system's top 10 in the country, but the brand is that it's bottom 10. But if we want to put our money where our mouth is, we need to have the best early learning effort in the United States. And we're going to measure that by kindergarten readiness and third grade reading. And for your chamber to get involved in that would be big. We're expecting a pretty smart early learning quality bill that we back to make it to the governor's desk, and we would expect that to get signed. And I think that's a really good thing. So, Troy, there's a host of other issues, infrastructure funding, workforce funding. There's additional, tort reforms and liability reforms that need to happen. There's property insurance reforms that are taking place. I think everyone knows we have the second highest auto insurance rates in the United States in South Florida. It's not because we have more accidents or our cars are expensive. It's because we have an out of control litigation tsunami, and the legislature can fix that, and we hope that they will. So your question, I think 20 minutes ago, was, will the legislature do the right thing? My job is to meet with the governor, the speaker, the president, and as many members of the legislature as we can. And I feel pretty confident that they're not interested in hurting our economy. There are some pretty different ideas of what they think needs to be done. And Troy, here's the one thing I would ask your membership. In a COVID environment, the Capitol is closed, right? So when I was over there yesterday, somebody has to come get me. There's a sign-in process, and it's generally closed unless you're invited to be in for a particular, meeting that you have. And what that means is committee testimony is very different right now. So if ever there was a year where your board members and trustees need to be calling your House and Senate member and governor and committee chairs, it's this year, right? So in the past, there would be thousands of people that bus and fly into Tallahassee and pack committee rooms, and they might hear from 30, 40, 50, 250 people who stand up and speak their piece. That's not happening right now in a COVID environment. So a call, a text, an email from one of you, right, saying, hey, friend in the legislature, this is an important bill. This impacts Boca, and we need to get this passed, or don't pass that amendment, or whatever it might be. So in any event, Troy, I'll turn it back over to you. That's probably more than you cared to hear.
No, actually, it was actually one of the questions that popped up, and you answered it in great detail. And you're right, Mark. We would be preparing to come see you with about 20, 25 business
Right,
leaders from
right,
Boca, visiting with you and our delegation. We don't have that opportunity. So thank
right.
you for pointing that out, how
Yeah.
critical that communication is
Here's
in this
Troy.
environment.
Troy. I'm going to ask you to do a favor. So take three bills that the Boca Chamber cares deeply about: the COVID liability bill, online sales tax, whatever else you might have, and maybe pick 9 to 10 in the morning, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1. Like take an 8 or 9 hour part of the day and have 50 of your members call between 9 and 10, and another 50
Mhm,
between 10 and 11. And my goal would be, I want your House and Senate member to call me and complain about you.
mhm,
Right?
right.
Nobody's going to be rude and disrespectful, but I'm just telling you, there are a lot of advocates that want the opposite of what the business community needs right now. And they're not, by the way, a lot of them aren't working, right? They have nothing else to do all day long but to do this. And so for you to organize your membership in a way where, your local delegation is hearing regularly. Again, these aren't partisan issues. These are, if we're going to grow the economy, we need our legislature to put local businesses ahead of politics.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Mark, next question here from the audience regarding liability, COVID liability. Have we seen a significant amount of COVID-related lawsuits versus employers yet in Florida? Have we actually seen them?
Yeah, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, I would have said no. I would have said we had a handful. Now we're starting to see an explosion of them. In fact, you know, um, we're starting to see, ads, right? The largest personal injury trial lawyer firm in the world, not just in the United States, is starting to run ads looking for plaintiffs to go after businesses. And the other thing, Troy, and I can get you the numbers on this. The other thing I would share is in some other states, think of workers' compensation and the impact on workers' compensation rates. In some other states, the states have actually made a presumption that if someone gets sick with COVID, they must have got it at work. And so it's automatically a workers' comp claim if any of your employees get COVID. You don't even have it, you have no chance. Now, we're not going to let that happen in Florida. So please don't think the Florida Chamber would ever let that happen. But all of your unemployment insurance rates are already going up significantly because of what's happened with COVID. And yes, we are seeing a pretty big explosion in the filing of cases. Troy, another question that might get asked is, the Florida Chamber is asking that this legislation that we believe will get passed and signed to be retroactive. So that, I think one reason we're seeing an explosion of cases is I think these personal injury trial lawyers know that, the governor is probably going to get this done. The business community is probably going to get it done. And they're hoping that if they can hurry up and get these cases filed, that maybe they'll get in under the gun. And we're pushing for this to be retroactive.
Right.
Look, a business who's done the right thing, I mean, the second I get up from where I am, my mask is going on, hands get disinfected, I'll get temperature tested again before I go back in, and meet with the other folks. I mean, when you're doing it right, you shouldn't be subject to a frivolous lawsuit.
Yeah, agreed.
Pretty simple.
Thank you, Mark. I'm getting a message here from one of my board members that it was in a meeting this morning, and he had heard that over 7,000 lawsuits had been filed in the country. And so it's probably more than that. So you're right, it's significant. And until or unless states get some good legislation put in place, it's probably going to run rampant. Along with you, the Boca Chamber is going to continue to fight for it. Let me go to Florida Senate Bill 778, Mark, which will extend Visit Florida by 2023. I know my good friend, I serve on the countywide tourism board here, is on the call. Do we think that's going to be successful? Will that pass so that we don't have this brutal fight every year to try to keep the existence of Visit Florida in our state?
Yeah. Look, we've lobbied aggressively for this. It makes sense. There's about a 3-to-1 return to taxpayers. For every dollar we invest in Visit Florida, we get about $3 back. So you'd want to invest more. Troy, I'm not a betting person, but I'll bet you and your member dinner anywhere in Boca that you want to go that this is going to get passed and signed. Look, the world has a pent up demand to make it back to Florida right now. So for example, Brazil, we typically have 14 million Brazilians every year travel to Florida. Right now, they're not allowed to. And, 10% of Canadians come to Florida every year. They can't do it. Right. And so the problem is all these other states and countries have taken the opportunity during COVID to think, hey, what can we do to rebrand our state or country? Maybe we can compete with Florida. In fact, you can see on that slide there right over my head, before COVID, we were estimating another 50 million annual visitors to Florida by 2030. We still estimate that if we can fully fund Visit Florida, we still estimate we'll see another 50 million annual visitors to our state. That's on top of 4 million more residents by 2030. So I had lunch with the Senate president the other day, and look, there are no guarantees in life, and there are certainly no guarantees in politics. Anything can happen. But if I were confident, if I were betting my own money on one thing, making it across the finish line, we need to keep the pressure up for sure. But I think that, all 67 counties have spoken out on this. And I think that, tourism drives a lot of our revenue engine at the state legislature. And I think they understand it's not Disney and Universal and SeaWorld. They're going to benefit from this. It's small local businesses, hoteliers and restaurants and people who are doing eco tours and dolphin cruises. I mean, this is who's going to go out of business if we don't do this. And so I really have, I'm very optimistic on Visit Florida, and Dana Young's doing an amazing job. So they deserve it. And I think they'll be all right.
Good news. Good news. That's on our agenda as well. So that's perfect. I know we're just a few minutes over, Mark. If I can get to a couple more questions, we'll let you go. Are you okay with on time if the folks want to stick around?
Yeah, keep going. I have a national Zoom call in a little while on education and how Florida's leading that charge, but I can be a little bit late to that. Let's keep going.
We don't want you to be late for that. That's wicked important. All right, just maybe we'll get to two more here.
Go for it.
I've got the Dean of the College of Business here at FAU, which Boca is the home base, and he talks about how FAU at the College of Business, of course, great supporters of the American Free Enterprise System. We love that here in Boca. He wants to prepare his students to succeed, as well as appreciate the freedoms that we all enjoy. What do you see as the greatest areas of workforce needs in Florida for college grads? And what advice can you give those who are educators in that endeavor?
Yeah, really, it's a fantastic question, Troy, and I'm not going to be able to help myself but give you two answers to that question, okay? First, again, 2 million new jobs need to be created over the next 10 years in Florida. And to the question, right? We know with relative certainty 8 years out what the regional skills needs are going to be, right? Most people don't know that we have, pretty good targeting. We know what the business community's needs are. The problem is students don't know that. And we're not sharing it. We don't have an efficient way to share it with guidance counselors or parents. And so, Troy, in June of this year at the Florida Chamber Foundation's Learners to Earners Workforce Summit, we're going to be rolling out a brand new tool similar to the gap map that I showed you earlier, a brand new tool that has future regional workforce needs, as well as future regional what careers are in demand and what do they pay and what type of education is available. As everybody knows, as important as colleges and universities are, there's a lot of jobs that, pay six figures that don't require a 4-year degree. And so I love this question because what we as business leaders can do is we can be better partners with our universities and colleges in letting them know what our needs are going to be over the next 2, 4, 6 years. Troy, I liken it to a restaurant. If I take your board to dinner tonight somewhere and we all walk into any restaurant you choose and I say, hey, chef, just bring us all something good. Almost every one of your members is going to send it back because they don't eat chicken or they don't eat steak or they don't like salad. And then they're going to say, this is a terrible restaurant. If we go back tomorrow night and on the way in, everybody gets to custom order exactly what they want, the way that they want it, they're going to say, this is the best restaurant ever. We're asking our education institutions to just give us something good. And what we have to do as a business community is we have to be way better customers. And that includes working with the dean of our business schools around Florida, right, to be total partners in what are the skills that we need, what are the critical thinking skills that we need. I'll just tell you this, one of our major employers in Florida has told me, they're going to be cutting out their entire middle management over the next decade. And they have no idea what degrees they'll need, but they can tell us with certainty what skills and certifications that are going to be needed. Well, if that's what a major employer in Florida is doing, we kind of all got to get ready for that. And we got to change the way we talk and the language we use. In June, we'll be coming up with Florida's skills gap analysis. And so I would love to connect with your member there, and maybe we can work together on that. Troy, the second part of that answer is sort of some troubling news. This discussion about socialism and capitalism, I would remind everybody, Karl Marx coined the term capitalism because he hated it. And what I would ask everybody to do is take it out of your vocabulary. It's a very negative word. It's a great concept. It's a negative word. When we poll voters in Florida under 40 and we say, which is better for Florida, socialism or capitalism? I got bad news. I don't have the slide deck to show you today, but about the same number of people in Florida under 40 think that socialism is either better than capitalism or it's the same as capitalism. So the problem is we need to let our future employees know what career opportunities are out there, and we need to do a good job at that. But we also, as employers, need to not be afraid of talking about the importance of free enterprise and how competition makes everybody's lives better. It gives us better products and services. It drives down costs. And so free enterprise is what we want to talk about. And, by the way, about 80% of people think free enterprise is better than socialism, right? And so sometimes words matter. And if we had more time, I'd get into it. But when we do focus groups on this, people under 40 think that socialism has something to do with social media. And that's why they like it, right? And so problem's bigger than we think it is. So anyway, appreciate the question. It's hugely important to our future.
Yeah. And you've got the commitment of our College of Business here at FAU to help and adapt and work on that very issue, Mark. So
it's awesome.
we'll have an offline and we'll
connect us. Yeah, thank you for that.
Get together. Let me just ask one more question, because I think you've touched upon, you kind of answered some of it through the discussion so far, but it goes back to homeowners insurance cost. And someone asks, how can we fix the cost in Florida other than change the environment?
Well, yeah, a couple things we need to know here, right? So when Charlie Crist was governor, he went around basically telling all these property insurance companies they needed to leave Florida. And they did, right? We made the regulatory environment such that a lot of brand name companies back then, Allstate and others, they were asked to leave by the then governor, and they did. And that made the taxpayers insurance program, which is called Citizens in Florida, the single largest insurer of properties in Florida. And that's not what you want. You don't want the government to do that. Back to what I said earlier about private sector competition. So, we've had a decade of trying to move this in the right direction. And we've had a decade of success. We have more companies now competing for your business. Unfortunately, years ago, we said that Citizens could not raise rates to be actuarially sound. And so what's happened now is, as companies have raised rates to be actuarially sound, what's happened is we've pushed more businesses into the government program known as Citizens. It's growing, and it's growing too big. Part of the solution here, and again, I know, Troy, I know this because people tell me all the time. They're like, why do you always talk about tort reform and litigation reform? It's because, folks, Florida has the 5th worst legal climate in the United States. And, just turn on the radio or the TV or drive down the road and tell me that the number one commercial that's on TV, radio, and billboards right now is sue someone. This person got me $900,000. This person got me $3 million. Well, until our legislature is willing to stand up to the personal injury trial lawyer crowd and put homeowners and local businesses first, you're going to continue to see your property insurance rise. Troy, another issue embedded in here is, you didn't ask about this, but sea level rise is something that's impacting Florida in a big way. And a big concern that we have is, we've been talking to reinsurers, right? Like Warren Buffett is a big investor in a reinsurer. When your property insurance starts tripling because of sea level rise, then all of a sudden everybody's going to get serious about this. But when your homeowners and your property insurance at your business is going up 10%, 20%, 25%, everybody wants to get mad at the insurance company. Well, the reality of it is, insurance companies are competing with each other, and they want to drive down your premiums also. But when the legislature won't say no to the trial lawyer industry, and we have the 5th worst legal climate in the United States, it's a big problem. So I would ask your members to ask their member of the legislature to just do the right thing. Put homeowners and local businesses ahead of the people that are on these billboards, suing everybody. We have, again, I don't want to go off the deep end on this, but we can bring down auto insurance and property insurance rates. And the number one thing the legislature can do is get the personal injury trial lawyers out of the business of making a fortune. Every time there's a fender bender, every time it rains and someone says you need a new roof, right? Come on, these are scams, and we're all paying for it. Bad faith reform, right? You can have me back on with a handful of members if they want to talk about it, but bottom line is, the legislature can fix this, and it would be at no cost to the taxpayers. And I think we would have even more insurance companies moving into Florida, competing on everything from workers' comp to homeowners to property insurance to auto insurance. It's what we want. And again, if we're going to be the 10th largest economy in the world, we're right now almost a $1.2 trillion economy. And we can't have the 5th worst legal climate in the United States. It's one reason companies are moving to Texas instead of Florida. It's the reason Airbus moved to Mobile instead of Florida, and that's pretty widely documented. So it's time to fix that, and we're doing everything we can.
Yeah. Mark, thank you. It's 1:15, and this was one of the quickest 75 minutes here. I know that
Always.
I'd love to talk to you all afternoon. You've got an important call to get on, and I just can't thank you enough on my behalf personally for our chambers and businesses across the state, families across the state, what you do every day, day in and out, and with your tireless way. Thank you so much, and for being accessible. Maybe we can have you on a little bit later down the road as we continue to kind of get through this. But you have been an invaluable resource to the state of Florida in getting us through this time, and excited about how you're going to catapult us to the other side of this. But appreciate you so much for being here today. We're going to let you go. And before the folks on the call go, we're going to follow up this amazing presentation by Mark today with one of his past chairs. We've got Eric Szilagyi, the president and CEO of FPL, who's going to be on an exclusive trustee event, much like Mark today, on March 31st, same timeline at 12 noon. So that'll be another exciting topic. And then in April, we're going to have John Carnes, who leads the Boca Raton Resort and Club, and talk about all of their amazing redevelopment, the millions of dollars they're putting in to the enhancements of that property to get it back up, as an organization in the hospitality industry. So again, Mark's got that slide up there if you want to download the deck, the amazing deck he provided today. If you're having a problem, email me, we'll get it to you. But again, everybody stay safe, continue to do as Mark says, wear that mask, keep your hands clean, do what you need to do, and we will continue to get through this like we have to date. So thank everybody for coming. Happy February already. And Mark, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you soon, man.
Thanks, Troy. Thanks for having me. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.